Welcome to Personal Mastery Training. I'm your host, Alvin Brown, former world-class athlete turned entrepreneur and consultant. Join us as we learn from guests who have conquered their inner battles and share their journeys to success. Get ready for inspirational masterclasses and thought-provoking strategy sessions to fuel your path to personal mastery. Let's dive in. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Personal Mastery Training. I'm your host, Alvin Brown. However, I've been working on a project that has me wrapped up and engrossed. So while I'm away, my fellow cohorts, my Personal Mastery Alliance members will hold this up and have my back. This episode is all about something deeply meaningful, as we always dive into. This is about how we can show up more powerfully, not only for ourselves, but for the people around us. See, it's easy to get caught up in our own goals, our challenges in our life. But the true measure of mastery is, can you learn from those challenges? Can you pursue your goals in order to make an impact on others? In this episode, you'll hear practical examples and heartfelt stories about being present, offering support, and making a lasting difference in someone else's life. So sit back and as I'm always encouraging you, take some notes and let my amazing co-hosts guide you through this inspiring episode of Personal Mastery Training. Let's go. Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome to the Personal Mastery Alliance. Dr. Charlie here with Ray. And we've got a powerful message today. I think that will resonate with a lot of people. And basically, it's about showing up for people. How do we do that in our life? How have people shown up for us in our life? Because sometimes if we're not certain, hey, how can I show up for people in a meaningful way? Sometimes other people have given us an example that we can follow. And when we show up, what does that look like? How do we do that? How do we go about that? And at the end of the day, what impact can we potentially have on someone's life? So with that, I'll pass the mic to Ray.
Yes, so it's a festive time right now. Obviously, it's the holidays also. And in these moments, obviously we look at ourselves, we look at our families and our close ones, and hopefully we have great moments and we cherish them. But I believe it's also a moment to reflect and to bring each other together, right? Looking outside your little bubble and see, where you can make more of an impact, where you can have more meaning. Okay, more meaning. And I want to share a wisdom with you guys real quick. Okay, from Thomas Merton, and that I find very, very cool. Okay, it says, "Love is our true destiny. We do not find the meaning of life by ourselves alone. We find it with another." Okay. Um, right before we started the conversation, Charlie and I were talking about different things. First, I was very inspired by all the things that Charlie is creating right now. He has been consistently creating over time, and he's creating right now, for himself, but really for the benefit of the many. Okay, so I wrote that down. I put 3 stars on it on my notes. It says, always be creating. Okay, I'll go deeper into that. And it's so true at the same time that our society and all of us, just the way life works, is that we all get so busy. We all get so busy that sometimes we stop just creating new. And by creating, I say creating connections, creating moments, creating memories, creating really love, love as much as possible. Is it Zig Ziglar? Zig Ziglar said, you don't want to be a wandering generality, right? A wandering generality. There are a lot of those right now. Maybe we're all a little bit guilty of that once in a while, that we kind of just go through the motions and repeat and repeat and repeat what's we did yesterday and the day before that, kind of like robots. But as I said, beyond just living our lives, there's this powerful component of finding meaning to live your life well. Okay. To live your life well. There's a difference between just living your life and living your life well. And living your life well, I truly believe, is when it involves other people. Whatever your gifts are, okay, that you can extract them from you and give them to someone else. I believe it serves you and it serves everybody else at the same time. During the holidays, I've been doing that for a couple of years now. I just go through my list on my phone, okay? And I find that on my list, there are certain people that I talk to on a regular basis. Let's say Charlie, for instance, every single week, we're on the call. Okay, we're on the call for about an hour and a half, and that's great. But there are some names on that too that I never call. But when I read those names, these people matter to me. They matter a whole lot. I have great, great, great memories with them. I accomplished great things with them, and there's meaning attached to these names. It's not a simple name. And then I just decide, listen, I'm gonna call them or send a little audio message, take a moment just to do that, simply to let them know I appreciate them. And you would be surprised, guys, by the type of messages that I hear back. Certain people, it can change their life. It took me 60 seconds, to make. And that's so true. You never know whoever you are, how important, your messages and really your heart transmitted to someone else can do. Okay, so that's what I would tell you guys. Make sure that you're very intentional as much as possible, especially in this time, but in this year coming up, to create those memories, create these connections. Okay, do not be stagnant. Keep moving forward because this will bring meaning into everything that you do. That's the seasoning to your life. Okay. And I believe that's the secret sauce. None of us, I believe, are made simply to be here. When we have all this potential, when we have all this goodness within us, uh, let's spread it. Let's make it multiply. Let's be intentional about that. Let's create our lives that way. And with this, I'll pass the mic.
Some thoughts, Ray. And I have also been amazed at just this time of year. I'll do the same thing. I'll look through my phone and look at for people that I haven't, reached out to in a while and try to send them a note and sometimes that leads to conversations but you do understand pretty quickly how much that means to people when you take the time to reach out to them. And we're just so busy now. I think it's more meaningful than ever. And I was just thinking yesterday, was working on writing this book and just come across some of my notes and the power of a handwritten note, the power of it. So I remember growing up, postcards would come in the mail, kind of took them for granted because they'd come in the mail all the time. Now, I think if you sent a postcard to someone with a handwritten note on it, it would be very meaningful.
Yeah.
When I get holiday cards this time of year, open it up and every time it brings a smile to my face. And then I have those cards around just because, hey, someone took the time to write a note, pick the card out, wrote a note, put a stamp on it, and mailed it. And with my address and everything. And so it's really meaningful. So, but to your point, Ray, looking for opportunities to create connection with people, to create moments. And it doesn't take a tremendous amount of time, but it can make a tremendous amount of a difference in the end. And there's just so many opportunities to show up for people because everybody's busy, Monday through Friday. Most folks are working, but within the context of a week, there are those downtimes where we have an opportunity to connect with folks, maybe showing up for dinner, maybe inviting them to dinner or breakfast or coffee, or one of the things that we all have in common is funeral,
mm,
right? And I don't know a single person that enjoys going to funerals, right? I mean, no one, enjoys that. However, that's one of the biggest moments that we have an opportunity to show up for people. And it's big when we take the time to do that, maybe travel some distance to do that, but it is so meaningful. And in my leadership training, it's one of the things that I teach, from the stage is telling leaders, hey, when these opportunities arise, that's a great time for you. Excuse me. That's a great time for you to show up for your people and show them that you truly care about them, not just as
yeah,
employees, but as people. And for years, I've been talking about that and telling stories about it and how meaningful it is. But as many times as I've taught it and talked about it, I can't say that, hey, there's been a lot of opportunities or for people to show up for me in that capacity. And then it's probably been 2 years ago now that I had a cousin pass away that I grew up with. We were in the same class, had a lot of slumber parties, did a lot of stuff together, played on the same teams, growing up, ran track together, played football together. Matter of fact, he wasn't a very good basketball player. So he became the manager.
mm,
And so he got to travel with the team. So it was just, we were very close growing up. And he passed away a couple of years ago, and it was devastating for sure. And I remember not wanting to go,
mm,
but I had said, man, I've got to show up for the family. And then, but I said, I'm gonna stay in the lobby, right, of the church. I'm not gonna
mhm,
go in there because I don't want to see him, in the casket. I don't want to see that. I'm just gonna stay in the lobby. And then when the service starts, I'm gonna leave, right? Then I get a call from his best friend saying, hey, Tony's wife called and asked if you and I would be pallbearers. And of course, I told her you'd have no problem. And I'm thinking, oh man, now I have to go in because I'm going to carry the casket. And so it was such a tough moment. I remember we had to get there early and get instructions about how the service was going to go, and when they'd call us up and we take the casket to the hearse and all that. So we get the instructions, and I'm sitting there and just it was tough. And I was like struggling, and I was like, man, I've got to be kind of get it together before the family gets here because I don't want them to see me struggling like this. And I need to be strong for the family. And about that time, I'm literally sitting there looking at the floor, and then the shadow comes up. There's this big
mhm,
shadow on the floor. And I look up, and it's a friend of mine I grew up with in high school. Matter of fact, we played college football together. And he was a big offensive lineman, big guy, still big guy. And just seeing him here, and he just hugged me, and it just immediately gave me strength. He didn't really know my cousin, and I remember asking him afterward. I said, I never, expected you to come or anything like that. But I was like, why did you come?
mm,
And he's like, I just felt like I needed to be there, and he did.
yeah,
And that helped me get through one of the tougher moments, in my life because he showed up. Right? He showed up and went to that funeral. Doesn't know the person in the casket really, but knew me.
yeah,
And then afterward, so then I'm in the car with his best friend because we followed my cousin was military, so he got buried in a military base, so we had to go drive there, which is another 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and then there's a military funeral, and then that was the end. And so I'm in the car with his best friend, who I also grew up with, and that was tough. And then afterward, my friend that showed up called and said, "Hey, me and my wife are at this restaurant. Why don't you guys come over? I know you probably haven't eaten because you've been at the funeral home all day. You had two funerals. Come over and we'll buy you dinner." So we went to that restaurant, and it's hard to explain how much my friend and I both needed that.
Yeah.
That's just an example of how someone can show up and how we have an
Mhm.
opportunity to show up for people. And with that, I'll pass the mic.
You're so right about funerals, how important of a moment it is, to really show up for your people. I've been doing that over the past few years, and then I'll give my first football football example. But you said, it was your football buddy that didn't know this person, but knew you, and that's what's awesome, I believe, about sports or whatever it is that you do in your life that you get to see through someone. You get to see really, really who they are. And I believe that these bonds, they stay forever and they're very strong. They're very strong. No matter if you speak to someone on a daily basis or you haven't spoken to them for years, they know who you are. They appreciate you at a different point. If I had a good book, I have a lot of names on there of people I haven't seen for years, but we've been through certain things together that I feel like I know the makeup of who they are, what their soul is. And a good example of that, I had one of my coaches, one of the hardest coaches you can think of. He was like so scary to us. He was so scary. You didn't want to go into his office. You made sure you did your homework because when you passed through the cafeteria, you were playing around. It was time to stop playing, stop playing around. Like that type of coach, just mean looking and everything. I found out not too long ago, about 3 weeks ago, that his father had passed away. And then I found the place and the date where they would celebrate, his father for the funeral. It wasn't even a question. I put it in the calendar. I told my wife, "Hey, I'm not gonna be available at that moment because I have to go to my coach's funeral." And I showed up, Charlie, and listen, he never expected me there. But the second he saw me, he came into my arms, started crying, And this is a dude, I didn't even think he could cry, that man. It was just the type of guy just crying in my arms. And I just let him know, "Hey, I'll be for you. I'll be there for you for whatever." And I know you would be for me. You know, I know you would be for me, and that's how important it is. And you talked about showing up to people, showing up for people. Uh, I believe in order to show up for people, it's important to first show up for yourself. Okay, and that's another thing. And that's another subject in itself because it's so true. Like if I don't write things down, if I'm not organized, if I don't take care of me, you know what happens? Life happens. Okay, life happens, and I'm back to being a wandering generality. When you show up for yourself, it puts you in a position to truly make a difference for somebody else. First in your home, outside of your home, through your friendships, at work, in your community, in the world, really, in the world. And if we dive deeper into it, I wrote this down. I wrote down just now, to show up for people, first you have to lead and then you have to serve. Okay. You have to lead and then you have to serve. Going back to this funeral example, Charlie, you led by making a point to being there no matter what. Okay, no one was going to tell you not to be there or to be there. You just found the information, it matters. You were going to be there. your friend did the same. You didn't ask for permission. You said, this is what I'm doing for my friend that I care about. And that's that. So they were proactive, they led. And once you do that first thing, okay, by leading, then you have to come in a spirit of serving. Okay. I'm here to serve. This is not about me. We go back to football. It's a team. What do we always say? At some point, it cannot be about me. It has to be about us. And I believe that's what life is. And that's what personal mastery is really. It's when you get to a point that you understand it's a weird dynamic where I'm working on myself. Okay. I'm working on becoming the best version of myself, not only for me, but for us. It's really about us because everyone benefits from that. And that's the best way I can show up for you is by being the best me that I can. Okay, by being the best me that I can. And with these New Year's resolutions coming up, okay, there's gonna be a lot of those. Okay, there's gonna be a lot of talk. Few will write them down. Okay, few will write them down. Even fewer will commit to them. Let's focus on giving ourselves the tool, okay, to do what matters, okay, make sure that whatever we decide has true meaning, a powerful why, and then equip ourselves to manifest that because it does make a difference as you continually walk that path of being the best version of yourself. We all benefit from it. I keep saying it. Charlie, for instance, since we're talking together, I like to take your example, but I know the impact that your grandparents had on your life. You talked about it. I never met your grandparents. I have love for your grandparents. Your grandparents, whether they're not here, they're affecting my life. You see how much that matters. Same thing for Alvin. Um, I haven't met the rest of his family. I met Alvin, but you can be sure anyone in his family comes to Montreal, they have a place, they have something. It's one phone call away. It's not even a question. Same thing for Brendan. That's how close we all are to each other and how we can all influence each other. It's about us. And with that, I'll pass the mic.
Wow, that's kind of a mic drop there. That was awesome. I think you said so many things there, and they're all so very true. And it is when we're intentional about showing up for people, we impact more than just the person that we showed up for. To your point, there's a ripple to that, and
Yeah.
like you said with the example of my grandparents, and it just I never thought about it that way till you mentioned that. Um, that's huge, right? Um, that's huge because my grandparents were very humble people. And, they didn't have, a fancy house or fancy cars or anything like that, right? But they had a lot of knowledge and they had a lot of wisdom. And they had a lot of love for me. And they just poured that into me, right?
Yeah.
At every opportunity. Now, they weren't perfect people either, but there's things they wanted me to know. There's things they wanted to make sure that I knew. And they did that. And then being
Yeah.
able to take the lessons they taught and then express those in a positive way has made my life
Mhm.
very meaningful and been able to impact others too. But yeah, I think I can trace a lot of who I am today back to my grandparents. I mean, that's a fact. And it's amazing. So I'm so grateful and thank you for sharing that. The other thing
Yeah.
I think too is really important is when we're showing up for people, it's a lot easier to do so if you set your pride aside.
mm,
Okay. Meaning you might not, it's okay to show emotion. It's okay to be perfect. It's not about perfection, right? It's about service, right? And in this life, we are not called to perfection, but we are called to service.
mm,
And in our imperfection, we can accomplish a perfect work sometimes. And that's powerful, but I think as human beings we get hung up on this doesn't look right. I don't know quite what to say. I'm not good with my words. I have a hard time expressing my feelings. None of that matters. What
yeah.
matters is that we showed up and put in the effort. And the person or people that we show up for will recognize that effort, right? They'll recognize it. And I've had people, "Ah, I want to tell people how much I care about them, but I'm just not very talkative." Well, guess what? When you do talk, everybody knows that you're not talkative. So when you do talk, your words have so much more weight because people are like,
Mhm.
wow, that was a lot. You said a lot, right? And so just being willing to be uncomfortable and have uncomfortable conversations or I mean no one walks into a funeral home in their comfort zone. Everybody feels uncomfortable. But within that, that's okay. Right? And oh, I didn't say this quite right or this wasn't right. It wasn't perfect. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't matter. And so if we get hung up on that, it can prevent us or hold us back from showing up for people. And sometimes showing up for people just sitting there. You know, I
Mm,
I one of the things when we going back to funerals, one of the questions that I'll get a lot of times afterward when I talk about it from the stage is, man, Dr. Charlie, I just don't know what to say. Right? I just don't know what to say. And my
mm,
response is this, there's nothing to say.
yeah.
You showed up. You spoke volumes showing up. And that person's going to do exactly what your coach did, Ray. They're going to see you. They're going to come back there and hug you.
Hmm.
Right? Thank you for coming. Cry. That's what they're going to do. You don't have to say much because there's nothing to say. It's what's done is done. But guess what?
Yeah.
You showed up. And it's just such a great opportunity to show up for people. And those moments, they're so emotional, Ray. Like with your coach, he'll remember that for the rest of his life. We have those
Hmm.
emotional moments in our life. Those are memories that last a lifetime. So it's just a great way to serve and to show up people for people in a way that'll last not just a day, but for a lifetime. And that's just so
Yeah.
powerful. So with that, I'll pass the mic.
And the thing about that coach too that I find is important to point out is that he was the tough loving kind of coach. Okay. Very tough loving coach. So we never like hung out or like laughed together. Right. It's very tough loving, but I understood over time the impact he had on my life and everything he taught me. And by being so hard, let's say with us, I could really see the love through it. How weird it is, he was really trying to make us better, always, right? And that's why I think it was such a powerful moment because we never like had a deep conversation, about stuff. It was the contrary, but he always showed up, and over time, I understand what he did for me. You know, I understand what I maybe couldn't see as a youngin. I see 100% now, and I believe that's why the moment was that powerful when he saw me, because the first thing he said, actually, he said, "Wow," and then he came to me. He said, "Wow," and that's another thing for us, as you said. Okay, whether you're the person showing up or you're the person that someone is showing up for, okay, make sure that you're open to really receive the blessing. Don't always listen to the tone, listen to the message. Okay, listen to the message because I know the impact he had on my life, and that's why I believe it was that powerful of a moment because he never said back then, "Hey Ray, man, I love you. We're gonna do this." No, 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 no. It was the opposite. But his actions spoke and it refined me and sharpened me into what I ultimately became as an athlete, and he had a big role to play in that. If I had someone else just tell me I'm all this and that, it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be the same at all. And I just want to touch on the last thing because you talked about it, Charlie. You don't have to be perfect. Okay. You don't have to be perfect. And sometimes that's what prevents most of us from showing up thinking, oh, I don't have the right words to say. Oh, look at my life. I don't have it all figured out. What can I do for someone else? That's the thing. Okay. We're one unit. There's so much more that you can do that you can even think of just by being there and understand the goal is not perfection, it's progress. What is personal mastery is understanding. And if I ask you the question, Charlie, I know your answer, but anybody else, I'm asking listeners, what's the limit to your potential? There is none, right? So you won't reach it. You will not reach it because it's infinite. It's infinite. What matters, the goal every day is, did you progress? Did you move forward? Ultimately, did you try your best? That's really, if you're a believer, that's what God's gonna judge us on in the end, right? It wasn't if we were perfect. He knows we're not. He knows we're not. He's gonna judge us on, did we try our best? Did we took everything that we received and tried our best and make the most with that, you know? And that's what matters in the end. And with that, I'll pass the mic.
So true. That effort and the intention of our heart, right? And it's just amazing. And sometimes, I think when we focus too much on ourselves, we kind of elevate our importance to a place that it shouldn't be, right? Because when we're afraid of not saying the right thing or afraid of being uncomfortable or afraid of being embarrassed, we're focusing on ourselves. We're not focused on the person that could use us, could use our help, or could use our support, right? And I'm going to share this information with everyone because it just, for me, it put things in such perspective, and I just I'm not going to worry about being perfect anymore. I'm going to always strive, right, for perfection because Vince Lombardi said if we do that, we'll never catch perfection, but what we will catch is excellence, right? And so I want to strive for perfection and catch excellence. But this, I came across this science fact. We're talking about creation and the universe, and we all understand or should understand now there's trillions of galaxies, not just our planet Earth is in a solar system, but we're a part of a bigger galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, that has 400 billion stars, just like our sun. Okay. And who knows how many planets. And so galaxies, we live in the Milky Way. There are trillions of galaxies that we know of, right? Here's the crazy thing. They're going in different directions at different speeds. There are galaxies right now that are so far away from us that if we got in a spaceship that traveled at the speed of light and we never die, we live forever, there's still galaxies that we'll never catch, that we'll never see. That blew me away. You can live forever and not see it all. That's the scope. And we get worried about we get worried about not having perfect words, or I don't weigh the right amount of weight, or I'm not handsome, or I'm not pretty, or my hair. We're worried about so many things that in the grand scheme of things don't matter. So with that, I'll pass the mic.
Yeah, man. You know what? I think it's all said. That's really it in the end. It's just like, oh, here's a word. Here's a good word. Okay. Humility. Humility. This is the word I was thinking. You know, humility in action. I truly believe, man, that yes, it's serving, but it's also leading. It's also leading. You know, it's putting your ego aside, putting your ego aside. And it does not mean, for all the men listening out there, we do have a problem with that sometimes, you know. Oh, that does it mean I'm weak? You know, and women have ego too. You know, I just said men because usually it's a big problem for us. Okay. That's the only reason, but does not mean you're weak. You can be very confident, you can be very strong, but you're also open. And most importantly, it's not about you anymore. It's about us. Okay, so what if that could be the focus, you know, going into the new year where, hey, I have a more open mind, open heart, and as I move through this life and this world, I think about us, you know. I think about us, even in business. What does make a what makes a successful business is when your product or your service helps people. Okay, and the more people it helps, the more successful your business becomes. So again, it's not about you; it's about us. You know, so let's focus on that. Yeah, let's be the best me for us. And that's really my focus and what I'm taking away from this conversation for sure. Mm.
That was awesome. I love that. So humility is a that is a great word to end on today. And I've been a boxing fan since I was a little kid, and the sport's kind of declined, I think, because of the way it's run, leadership, not the fighters, but the way the sport's led, and there's all these divisions and whatnot. But currently, the heavyweight champions from the Ukraine, Alexander Usyk, and I
Just
really
yeah.
like great fighter. Consider, he's put himself on the map now. He's probably top 10 heavyweight all time. And but he's a very humble man. And when you listen to him interviewed, he's very thoughtful with his words, very careful with his words. But recently, a reporter asked him about it. And he said, when you lift yourself up, the world will tear you down. But when you keep yourself down, the world will lift you up. And I thought, wow, that is such an amazing quote, and it's so true. And so I think it's about being a service to others. And when we're a service to others, great things will happen as a result of it.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
what's the word for today? That's the only thing left now.
You know what? Then I'll go with love. In order to show up for someone, in order to be of service, in order to lead, uh, you have to have love. You know, you can do all these things, but if you don't have the right intentions or you have an agenda, it's tainted. It's not the same, right? It's not the same. It needs to come from love, and that's the most powerful thing, and I'll go with that word today.
I'm gonna piggyback on that, Ray. I'm gonna go with kindness because the great Michael Ray, some of you out there may know who he is, the Smile Buddha. Louisville, Kentucky, Project Smile. He says that kindness is love in action.
Yeah.
And so we've got to remind ourselves, even when we have to have tough conversations sometimes, we can still be kind.
Yeah.
We can always be kind. And I think the great Mr. Rogers said that. He said there's three ways to ultimate success. He said the first way is to be kind, the second way is to be kind, and the third way is to be kind.
Wow. Hey, I have to piggyback on that really, really quick, but shout out to Jeannie. She might have, I'm saying her name, giving her some publicity, but she's the owner of World Gyms here in Quebec. You know, doing very, very well. Great business women. Now, one thing she taught me over the years in every single interview, and I still do that today in my when I interview people, and I took that from her. She always asks this one question, especially when she hires high leadership people. She asks them, "What's the most important to you in your leadership? Is it being smart or is it being kind?" Okay, and she's asking that question very specifically, depending on the teams, because and again, there's no perfect answer. It really depends on the culture you're trying to create. But for me, I need to hear, and I'm giving the blueprint, guys, if I need to hire you for anything, but I need to hear the word kindness in that answer, especially when you're dealing with people. If kindness is put to the side, no matter what, I believe there will be a problem, at some point. So I thought that was a powerful, powerful question. And you're talking about a strong woman business leader, but kindness needs to be at the forefront as well as everything else. But kindness is so important. We need more of it in the world for sure.
It's amazing. I was watching a speech. It was a graduation speech that a professor, commencement speech that a professor was giving. And he was talking about the power of kindness and how, it requires higher brain function and more advanced thought processes and maturity from the individual. And he said, typically, when you're in a room, the smartest people in the room are the kindest people in the room. And so because of all the thought processes that have to take place and the
Yeah,
understanding of what it means and how to perform it. So that
awesome.
is so awesome. All right. So I want to wish everyone a safe and happy new year. And until next time, we want to leave everyone with a lot of peace, even
Love.
love, and plenty of soul. All right, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. I love you. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate
Love you as
you.
well,
All right.
man. And just wishing you guys an awesome 2025. And just look forward to it's going to be an awesome year.
Yeah, for sure. I don't doubt it. And likewise, likewise, Sean.
All
All
right.
right,
Thank you,
man.
brother.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
Take care.
Bye bye.